Through the Propfolio platform, owners and investors can look at their properties and visualize their metrics all the way from financials to the status of their properties, the maintenance, their different financial reporting, the pictures, and can track every single part of the real estate investment in real time without any hassles in a mobile environment or any PC or laptop. So let's go through how this portal works. With an easy login and very secure password, every investor, whether it has one property or a multiple portfolio or commercial, residential, industrial properties, can come into one centralized place where all their real estate properties are shown, and where the investor can look the first page, their summary of investments as a dashboard, and they can see, for example, that it has 47 active units or properties in this case, where it has the occupancy rate for the whole portfolio or the whole properties that it has, all the cash that it has available in the bank, the estimated value of their portfolio as a whole, some of the documents that we've outlined as a company for them to look at and that we constantly put up for them for easy view and access. And then the investor can select different properties and aggregate them into different portfolios. So for example, this investor has one set of multi-condo properties in different areas in this first portfolio, and that shows a summary of what the IRR would be for that specific portfolio, what the investment was for, and the estimated value of the portfolio right now, the monthly rent roll, and how many units it has. The same investor then can say he has another portfolio. This is a commercial retail center with 20 tenants inside the shopping center, and it has the different aspects of that summary for that investment here. Then it has a third portfolio where you have a multi-family in residential with 16 units, and that also shows here. And then it has another one. It has one property that's not rented and it's just up for sale at the moment. So we have here several types of investment portfolios within one investor, and then he can aggregate everything here on the top. Now on the bottom you have each of the different owners and each of the different owners of each of the portfolios separated one by each of the units, and you can go portfolio by portfolio, unit by unit, and start looking at specific data of each of them that way. Now as an investor, normally what you'd like to see is the summary here, and then we'll start digging in to go more in depth into each of the numbers for each of the portfolios and properties. So first, they can go in and access a portfolio as a portfolio itself and see the summary for the aggregation of those, let's say in here, 10 units. So if you click here, we will be now on the world of those 10 units and the portfolio that has those 10 different condos. In the summary page, which is the dashboard for this portfolio, you first have on the left hand side the number of units, what's active, what's sold, the monthly rent roll of everything that all those 10 units are providing in every month. You have the investment and the estimated value, again summary. You have the map with each of the properties. You can go satellite, you can go regular map, and you can click on any of the properties to then access a specific property and all its numbers, which we'll get into in a little later. Let's first analyze the portfolio as you usually do in the financial world for investors, but in all real estate. Just keep in mind all these numbers are real time, gathered from their specific bank account, so they're not projections. The only projections available, and there are very valid projections, are the estimated values of the portfolios and the properties, which they can tag into different market analysis tools and decide whether they'd like an external platform that they recognize like Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com to peg them to those values, or they want a broker price opinion that we can automate in the system as well, so the values are pegged. but the investor can then go in and change the value to try to test the numbers, as that's the only variable that it's changeable. So the first metric that you can see right away is the internal rate of return, this number of 12.28, and you can change that number whether, because it's pegged not only to the reality of cash flows but also to the time frame from which those cash flows you've been getting them, and it's pegged to the valuation. So if you think that the valuation could be lower, then you can start testing the IRR. And a lot of investors also use this tool to see how much do I have to sell my whole portfolio to be able to achieve a certain IRR for all my investments. So let's say I want to achieve I guess 13% IRR, so I can start saying, well, if I sell my property for my investment for 1.6 2, then you get to the basically a 13%, or the other way around. What's the cheapest that I need to sell to be able to get rid of the investment at 11%? So it's a very useful tool. You can edit it this way too if you think your closing cost is going to be different, because that's also something that's pegged to this analysis. So if you have a different closing cost, and you can say here, $1 million, what would my return be if I get out of this investment? You can see it this way. So it would be 7%. Now the cash on cash does stay constant, because it doesn't matter how much you sell for. The cash on cash, which is the other matrix over here, which in the case is 8.26 this particular moment, reflects all the income and expenses for the investor, and on a yearly basis it provides that cash on cash, which is pretty close to what a cap rate would be. So you have the total cash available in the bank for this particular portfolio, and you can, as an investor, request the money to be taken out from the system and from the bank account and transferred to yourself. So on the portfolio as it is, you have all these different tabs that analyze that portfolio in itself, and you can go and see property by property the IRRs and some of the specifications, so living area, monthly lease, if it's active or if it's being marketed, or for example has a 3-day notice here. Some summaries, it's been vacant for 38 days, this one's been rented, etc. And what are the IRRs for each of them, so you can make a quick analysis of which ones are doing better than the other ones as an aggregate and make some very interesting decisions. Now you'll be able to go into each of these in a little bit, we'll show you. But as a portfolio, you go into the, for example, summary, and you have first there's some visualization tools that are very useful. You have the cumulative income and appreciation and investment. How does it divide amongst themselves? You have some profit breakdown before taxes. So this portfolio has had about $800,000 of appreciation over the years, and it's had $226,000 in income that it's provided as far as income in the P&L. That more or less in the last 12 months, this has been the income and expense trailing back 12 months, and these are the major ticket items. So if you can see here, the summary to run this portfolio without any income would be $7,689 a month. So that's very, very interesting. Now you can go and access, for example, let's go to the P&L, which is a very useful, very fast calculation here, and you can say very quickly with one click, give me my profit and loss for the last year. And in 1 second, for the whole 10 properties, is linking all the bank accounts, all the incomes, all the expenses, all the different accounting categories and subcategories, and it's giving you, you see the income of $153,000, and this is how it's divided between the categories and subcategories. Then the expenses, okay? And within the expenses, you have all the different subcategories and categories of expenses, from air conditioning, appliance repairs, electric bills, general maintenance, legal expenses, management fees, plumbing, processing, property taxes, etc. For example, property taxes among all properties, this was $16,253. Vacancy, so as you see, it's no projection. This is actually the reality and transparency of the financial for your property, which is not even your property, 10 properties at a time in this case, which in most cases investors are really blinded on many of these things, or don't tag it to the investing itself, and it's very hard for them to actually get to these numbers. As you can see, you can download it very quickly to Excel, make your adjustments and comments, etc. You can print it. It's a very useful tool when you're getting towards the accounting side of things at the end of the year, so the accountants can access a portion of this and take out the reports very easily. You could do the same, year to date, and in 1 second it provides that. You can select any date range that you'd like for the P&L to show, and from here you can even go and say this company only, say NI11, just give me that particular P&L, give you the P&L for that particular company for the last year, and that particular company is one specific property, and you can see how you can go specifically from here to a property that generated, for example, here a cash flow is almost $8,000 last year. If you see your properties not as a company, but you see them more and you understand them more on a unit basis, which unit or which address, you can do the same per address. Okay, so this is how you're analyzing your portfolio. Now you can go and check out in the transactional side each transaction, which is going more into detail. This section is very, very powerful because this is when the investors want to get more into the nitty and gritty of their operation and visualize the transparency on it. This is like having, imagine, 10 different bank accounts for 10 different properties that are being managed in one centralized place with two very important things, or three very important things. One of them, I would tell you, the description of the expense. Then you have you could do any date range search capabilities and the search for categories or for anything you want to search. So if I want to look for example, insurance or repairs, I want to do repairs, I see the repairs for this unit. Now remember, it's only going to give you the last 3 months by default. If I wanted to check the last 12 months so I can get a feel of the last 12-month expenses, I can search for the last 12 months and it'll give me a lot more data to go. So you have not only the memo, you have the number of checks, like the number of the check that were actually every single, and the date of every single expense. And then for example here, if you hit what I was trying to search before, which is insurance, now you have all the insurances that were really paid because you do have a year worth of data. If you're doing, for example, the repairs, now you'll have a year worth of data and you can do repairs and do any search that you like. So let's say vacancy repair, what each amount was. And then if you go in, for example, to an appliance repair, let's say this one, and you open every section of the documents, you not only see the invoice, but you'll see all the payments, invoices or bills that reflect that payment, so you can have transparency on what's being done. And then you have the pictures of what was done, the before and the after, what was exactly fixed. So imagine the serial number of what was placed, so you can really get track of every single expense that you're going through in this area. So you have, let's say you wanted to see the taxes. You can do a search here for property taxes, usually for each of the properties, the taxes, when it was paid, and all the information for that specific area. You can even look at the document for the payment of the taxes, and you'll have it here, so you can actually check your taxes that were paid. And this provides breakthrough transparency for the investor. So it's a very, very cool tab. Now there's another great tab which investors love, which is the lease details, which in a portfolio side gives you in 1 second a rent roll of that portfolio. And look, in 1 second you can know that there's a 3-day notice placed on this property because he owes $450 in the rent that month. Now you can tell that this person has already paid to date $36,000. It has a lease that expires in 115 days. And you can go, the person, you go in, you see more details specifically of that tenant in itself, the past due area, and some information of their payment history. So if the people have paid, hasn't paid, this is a problematic tenant that they have in that specific section. But then you have the other ones where there are no problematic tenants, and you see how one of those looks. So there's no red here. The payment histories had an issue, I guess, this month, and then everything else is there. You have a history of everything, the security deposits and everything that you've been dealing with in terms of that tenant. So all these tools are extremely important. Then you can do cash flow, you can do 12-month actual summary pages that are very, very powerful. And this is to look at everything from an investor portfolio that you have. Now let's say you wanted to go to a specific property. which is what a lot of investors that are more in depth, and this is what you're going to see now, is what an investor that has just one property actually looks at. So if we go here to this particular unit, now you are at a property, and you can see all the story for this property, and you can see where it is. You can take out some of the pictures of the property, etc. No? And you have, again, the IRR, you have the cash on cash for the property, you still have the market valuation, and you can move the market valuation and it will change your IRR. Okay, and then you can select, you see, for example, which valuation you want. Would you like your broker's valuation? You want your Zillow valuation, and as you click on it, it changes specifically from one place to the other and recalculates. Okay, now you have how much your investment was for, the purchase date, total income, the total appreciation, some specs, and then you have even a graph from how your investment has behaved in terms of income, appreciation, and the investment itself, which stays constant throughout the time in 2010 when it was purchased until the moment that you're visualizing this. It has the same visualization tools here that the portfolio has, but for a particular property. And then it has some of the same features, but now you're talking about a particular unit. Again, the P&L, which we saw before, you can work P&Ls, but for the specific unit, you can have, for example, here you start having work orders. For example, this one doesn't have a work order right now, but you can check the status of your work orders in on-demand invoices, documents. So you can go to this unit and check out the HUD, for example, from when this unit was purchased, and all the specifications. So you have a place to centralize all of your documents in one great place. The lease will only be pertinent to this particular unit, and you have all the information regarding the tenant, the name, the history of payment, how much is it leased for, when's the next rent charge, and the tenant gets a portal where they access this information and where they have access to payment directly from there, understand their balances, and communicate with the manager regarding any issues that they would have. So as you see, it's a very comprehensive platform that allows the investor to really connect with the real estate properties at all times. Now, if we go back to the dashboard, we could see how if we look at another type of portfolio, for example, a commercial one, the platform changes to a commercial-like type of experience. So that has the monthly leases, it has the property description as per every tenant within the commercial lease environment. And if you go to a tenant specifically like this, it's already a tenant that it's a commercial tenant, and it changes a little bit as to what the information that it holds for that tenant looks like. For example, if you go to the lease details here for that particular tenant or portfolio, you have a little bit more information as to being base rent and some aspects of the portal that show in a commercial like environment. Okay, so this is when you're talking commercial, and it discusses scams and all those other things. You have access to also look at balance sheets. You have access to also look at cash flows, which are also very important features for unit owners and investors. And you have a section specifically for documents, which becomes very interesting. We love this for estate planning purposes, etc., where you provide access to families or family offices, where in one centralized place they can go and search for all the deeds, for all the transfers, for all the HOA information, and in one centralized place they can go and get all the documents that they need and have access to them. So this is the basics of our Propfolio management platform, where investors have a breakthrough way to connect and have complete transparency, matrix visualization, and a combination of financial savvy data and up-to-date, up-to-the-minute information with the details of their banking information, all their transactional movements, and the pictures and before and afters and invoices to actually test and have all the backup for everything and anything that's happening with our property. Thank you very much for listening, and we're here to help.